Photographer TJ6-3.7. Let's begin. Ready?
Yes, sir.
Recite your baseline.
A system of frames of the yellow mirrorless began to spin. A system of frames interlinked within frames interlinked within frames interlinked within one stem. Frames dreadfully distinct against the dark.
Frames.
Frames.
Does your camera make frames? Frames.
Frames.
Do you use natural frames? Frames.
Frames.
Interlinked.
Interlinked.
Are technology and creative interlinked?
Interlinked.
Interlinked. Japan and photography are interlinked?
Interlinked.
Interlinked. Within frames interlinked.
Within frames interlinked.
Why don't you say that 3 times?
Within frames interlinked. Within frames interlinked. Within frames interlinked.
We're done. You can pick up your mirrorless.
Thank you.
We're here at Shibuya Crossing, home of the famous scramble that you've probably seen many, many times in all kinds of Japanese B-roll. It's really kind of the go-to shot. And there's an amazing football/soccer, depending on where you live, stadium right here. And when it lights up, which it hopefully will later today, it's gonna be a really incredible shot. Right now, we're gonna actually go down to the crossing and we're gonna try a few handheld shots. I'm gonna do some longer exposures. Kind of embraces what's going on with just the amount of movement. The normal travel photography stance is that like you wake up early in the morning and you get there before there's any people, but the people kind of really make the shot here today. So I feel like that's what you gotta take the photos of, and it gets busy after like 5 p.m. here. So it's dark, I'm gonna do some photos. Hopefully this turns on. All right, I'm trying to do a really, really slow shutter speed here. We're gonna handhold 1/4 of a second. We're gonna go lower. Gonna handhold 1/1.3 of a second.
What? It's sharp. That in-body stabilization is actually really good. And also it started to rain, so there's some water droplets on my lens, but I actually kind of like them. It kind of frames the buildings in. It adds interest to the sky where there would have been no interest before. So sometimes technical flaws and imperfections come together to make a better image.
We were here last night to try to get some photos of the actual people. Tonight we're here to get some 1/30th of a second exposures of the older taxi cabs. So I'm gonna be doing panning shots as the taxis go by, and I'm trying to get one of the yellow ones or the green ones or something that is a more vintage Japanese taxi rather than the newer Tokyo Olympics ones. So yeah, there's a lot of variables, a lot of randomness. It's raining, which I actually kind of like because it's making the ground here a lot more reflective and bringing the light back up. And when you are doing these types of shots, you either want to put your vibration reduction, your in-body stabilization, either into sport mode or off entirely. I turned mine off entirely, and I'm just doing my best to kind of keep steady as I roll through. There's a lot of opportunities here. Pretty hit or miss. I like that one, but the composition's a little bit wrong. If it would have been back there, it would have been a lot better, but completely obstructed by a van. Also, I don't feel bad being out here in the rain. As you can see, there's lots of rain on my LCD because everything is properly weather sealed, so I'm not stressed about that. Here we go. Yeah.
Really happy with this frame, and now we are going to head upstairs to the observation deck.
Able to give me this beautiful Nikon strap because I didn't bring a strap on my camera, and apparently that's required up here. The one corner that you want to take photos from is kind of obstructed.
This is the line for the crossing photo open air. We'll shoot through the glass instead.
This worked out better than I thought it would.
Some things started to come together for this photo, but at the end of it, it just kind of looks like a mess of city with no specific subject. The rule of thirds, the road almost kind of started to line up, but I don't know. There's no specific subject to make it a great photo, I don't think. Heading downstairs to the main observation deck level that's covered in glass to hopefully get a good scramble photo.
I think the ideal spot is kind of in this corner, and it doesn't seem to be too popular under demand, even though there's a huge lineup up there to get the same shot, but you can just come here and shoot it through the glass.
Scramble kind of lines up in the rule of thirds corner where there should be a subject interest, but again, it's just kind of a bit of a mess. The more that I zoomed in on the actual scramble crossing, the more that it just kind of was hazy from shooting through the glass. It was illuminated from the bottom. I also found it very difficult to frame anything that I would want to frame just by the physical placement of the building. But tomorrow we're going to the Mori Tower for Blue Hour and the Tokyo Tower, which is a shot that I've wanted for a very long time.
Not designed necessarily for photography, this platform, unfortunately, but still, I would say probably worth coming up here. We're going for a drive through Tokyo right now, and I'm doing 1/13th second exposures at the car window here of, again, the older taxis. I guess this is part 2 of that series, and I'm really enjoying it. I like just the random element of the fact that a taxi has to come up beside us and I have to pan with it, and it's kind of like a video game in real life to create art of some sort. And the images I'm getting, I think, are some of my favorites so far. So we'll see when I get back to a computer, because when you're in the moment and you're creating, everything is awesome. And then sometimes when you get back and you actually curate what you've done, it's not as good as you thought it was or that you want it to be. So we'll see.
This one is my favorite from the series. It's a little too center composed for me. I wish that the taxi was maybe to the left a little bit. I could crop it, but it didn't really. It is basically the variables of driving in a car with another car moving and trying to get the shot, and also trying to get it mostly in focus because you're shooting at 1/13th of a second and you're moving in a car that the car is moving and you're trying to pan. There's a lot going on, and I'm happy with it. It was a fun little challenge. I think that I would love to do this more often in cities. It's actually a lot of fun. We're up here in the Mori Tower to get the quintessential blue hour shot of the Tokyo Tower when it lights up all orange. The rest of the city is blue. The reason we came up here is really for the natural contrast, the fact that the city is all kind of this nice blue-gray, and then the Tokyo Tower really punches out in that bright orange. So looking like a postcard. All right, so what I'm doing right here, you can see on the screen, is that I'm kind of framing out that taller building on the left. I want everything to kind of be as flat as possible, and those buildings kind of compete with my main subject, which is the Tokyo Tower. And I'm getting just a little bit closer, and somewhere right about there is probably the frame that I'm going to be photographing. And I'm just going to do it over and over again because our blue hour is really only 11 minutes long. I'm now going to be moving down to F2.8, and I'm going to be moving my shutter speed down to 1/30th of a second. The stabilization in this camera more than makes up for any small shakes that I might have or this railing might have. And I'd rather keep my ISO down just so that I have a little more data and a little more dynamic range in there. Because the Tokyo Tower is a vertical subject, I feel like I would regret it if I don't do a few vertical frames here. So I'm starting off with some vertical frames. They're a little bit overexposed because I kind of want the shadow detail or access to it, or access to more of it. So I'm happy to go a little bit over in this case because I know that I still have the highlight of the brightest cloud, and a few vertical frames. So 70 is almost perfect for this frame. I feel like 24 looks good, but there's just a little bit too much going on. 35 looking pretty good, and then 70 is kind of where it's at. I am super happy with this image. Even if it might be considered to be a cliche image, I'm happy that I was able to come here to capture it. At the end of the day, the photos that you make should be for you, something that you personally want to create, something that you want to print, and this image checks all those boxes for me. That's all for today. If you did not yet check out this week's episode of the Nikon Show in Japan, there's a link in the description below. Go see that and enjoy the frames.
Frames.